This episode is brought to you by Absolute Landscapes. Absolute Landscapes is a landscape maintenance company that focuses heavily on commercial property maintenance. Call today for information about the services we provide and how we can best help you. 803-427-5944.
Yeah, no, I'm ready for this conversation, man, because I know we talked about a lot last time. I know we're going to get into a lot this time, and I think for like what you do and what you speak on, I think this is a good time to have this conversation because we talk about mindset, we talk about masculinity, we talk about a lot of these things that seem to be affecting especially young men. You know what I mean? Especially the young men of the generation of the future generations. So if you want to, before we maybe get into all that, if you just want to introduce yourself, kind of say who you are, what you do, anything that relevant that you want to share that you're comfortable sharing, whether it's background or what you're into, we'll go from there.
Yeah, no doubt, man. Thanks for having me on your podcast. I've been looking forward to this. My name is Alex Payne. I am the founder and host of Purpose Over Pleasure podcast. I am an active law enforcement officer, first responders peer support council, and a public speaker. I'm also an entrepreneur. I deal with the commercial asset design, sales, and liquidations. So I do a few different things. Sometimes people call me a Renaissance man. I just call myself a curious man. But yeah, my purpose here in life is to help bring up other men, to help them heal their trauma, to help them realize their own potential and find purpose in life. Because my life changed when I found my purpose in life, and I started living my life with intention instead of just spending life meaninglessly.
Yeah, man, that makes so much sense because I feel like most, and I mean you could probably speak to this more than I can, but most people who are caught up in some sort of a lifestyle of crime or an addiction or something along those lines, it's almost like one of the key things that's driving that is a lack of purpose. A lack of who you really are, a lack of something this bigger than you that you're trying to work towards. I mean, I've had people. Rory Launder was just on the podcast recently, incredible story, and he mentions, and I know a lot of people feel the same way, that when he got out of his addiction, one of the things that helped him the most was finding something that was much bigger than him. And whether that's a spiritual thing or a religious thing or just a sense of a meaning, something to work towards, whether it's something in the community or whatever. I think finding that sense of purpose and knowing who you are and pursuing that purpose. I mean, I don't know of anything that would be more important than that. That's probably the most important question in life.
No, 100%. And there's really a meaning behind the name on the podcast, Purpose Over Pleasure, because there was a point of my life where I have achieved everything that I wanted to achieve. To kind of give you a quick little story, right? I wanted to be a police officer. I wanted to be the badass. I wanted to help people. I thought my purpose is to help people, which it still is, just in a different aspect. And when I became the police officer, when I was a bachelor, I had a good job, I was making good money, I had a nice car, my own place, and I had more women than those days in the week. I had everything that I wanted, but I realized that every single day I would wake up with this voice just scratching inside of me and just nagging at me every single day, and I would go to sleep with it. And that was day after day, week after week, month after month. And it doesn't matter how many women I slept with, doesn't matter how many parties I've attended, doesn't matter how much alcohol I consumed, whatever. It was still there. I would wake up with that voice and I'd go to sleep with that voice. And I come to realize, that voice is my consciousness. That voice is my purpose. That is a higher, better version of me. That is the purpose that God instilled inside of me. And by escaping it, which is what we do as men, we constantly escape, right? In sex, addiction, pornography, drinking, partying, video games, you name it. You name it. I was a master of escaping. It would never stop. It would continue to bug me every single day. And I realized that, hey, listen, I have two choices in life. I can do option number one. Great quote that I heard a long, long time ago would change my life. Check this out. Most men live life of quiet desperation. That one hit me, man. When I thought about it and I realized that is true. Most men live life of quiet desperation. Most people do. Because they, at some point, they bought into this 9-to-5 mentality. They bought into this get married, to have a house, have kids, and become stagnant for the rest of your life, work your 9-to-5, retire, and die. And they gave up. They gave up on their dream. And to me, that was scary. There's no way I'm going to do that to myself. There's no way, because I've tasted the price of regret early on in my life, in my mid 20s to early 30s, and I told myself I'm never going to do it again. I would rather die trying than die with regret.
Yep.
That was option number one. And option number two, I was like, okay, I'm just gonna go for it. I'm gonna do what I want to do, and here I am today. I'm blessed to be able to sit in my own studio at the comfort of my own studio, and to be able to talk to somebody like you who shares the same visions, who has the same goals and aspirations to helping other people. And this makes me happy. This is my purpose in life. This is your purpose in life, and here we are today, man. Fast forward a couple of years. Just the lesson is follow your purpose. Stop choosing pleasure over purpose. Choose purpose over pleasure. And one last thing I want to mention, you said the life is about finding your purpose. You're 100% correct. I also like to add this one small thing. It's about creating your purpose. I would not be here today had I not been a police officer first. By being a police officer, I realized that situation out there in the world, especially amongst men, is so bad that I need to do work with men outside of being a police officer. So we create our purpose in life, right? So I went from a police officer to then a podcast host to then a coach, and then I found my true purpose in life, which is public speaking, which I absolutely love doing. I mean, I do it for free, and that's the only thing that I'll do for free. If everything in my life was paid for, that's the only thing that I would do, is to talk to people and inspire people and help them, and I'll bring in and talk to individuals like yourself.
Yeah, man. So you hit on a lot right there. So I want to back up just for a minute, because we were talking about pleasure, the immediate gratification, which I've said before, I think is just, I mean, it's just poison to everybody, but especially to men, because you think about all these great, generals from, Napoleon and all those guys, like they didn't have the things that we have right now, and I'm not saying that what they did was right or wrong. I'm not going down that road. I'm just saying that the immediate gratification of something, whether it's drugs or alcohol, porn, sugar, excessive sweets, excessive video games. I don't have anything against video games. I'm just saying that to an extent, to excess. Anything that is like excessive, that is immediate gratification avenue, I think is toxic to men. Because it's like, okay, so we got a lot of men these days who feel that they are depressed, like something's lacking in their life. Now, I would say that's probably a sense of purpose.
Yeah.
But let's go farther than that, because a lot of these guys also, they're not really doing anything that is a pursuit of a higher goal. And I know that sounds like purpose. We just said that. I understand that, but it's like, okay, a lot of these guys that are depressed, that have this mental health issue, which I think is an issue that needs to be addressed. It's like they're not in a gym, they're not improving themselves. They're spending all this time on TV or binge watching Netflix or video games. They're chasing women, which is a controversial one, because I know there's a lot of men out there who think the more women that they have, courted or whatever, the more masculine they are. And I don't agree with that at all.
Used to be me.
But it's like all these avenues of immediate gratification, right? And it's like, okay, what that does over time, over 50 years or 25 years, whatever it's been since we've had the technology that we've had increase, is like it takes away the pursuit of the battle of building something as a man. You know what I mean? It's like, so I heard something, Andrew Huberman one time. I've referenced him a lot on this podcast, and he's not really one that you would bring up, at least his podcast isn't, when you talk about masculinity and men's issues and this kind of thing. But he talked about dopamine. He talks about a lot about, he's a neuroscientist. So he said it's not the pursuit of pleasure, it's the pleasure of pursuit. And I feel like, as men, when we're building something, whether that's a business, whether that's a family, whether that's a career, we get a lot of that pleasure from the pursuit of the thing. And I mean, I don't know, maybe women feel that same way. I can't speak about women because I'm not one, but I know as men, like we get a lot of pleasure and gratification through the pursuit of the thing. I mean, it's like, I tell people all the time, man, like I know you probably have a similar experience to this also, but it's like building my business. A lot of what I would think would be, I want to be careful with the word happy, but a lot of the happiness that I felt from my business was actually building the business. It's not like you get to a certain point and you say, okay, I have, X number of clients, or I have X number of revenue. I mean, that might make you feel happy for a little bit, but it's the journey along the way that it's the building of that. And the whole purpose of saying all that was just to reiterate the point. I think a lot of times especially these days, 2024, we as men, especially young men, they're missing that. They're missing that pursuit of building that thing, whether that's themselves or a family or anything else. It's because I get it. Okay. We can go to the grocery store and we can buy a meal, and we don't have to go out and hunt and gather things like they did back in the day. Okay. I understand all that. That's convenient. But at some point, we can't let convenience run the life that we're trying to live, because then we get accustomed to that. And then we have a generation, not to pick on men here, but then we have a generation of men who are like overly sensitive because everything has been done for you. You know what I mean? So I know I'm getting off on a tangent here, but the bottom line is, the point of this is that I feel like when we talk about purpose, this lack of purpose, yes, I think that's a thing. And I think also too, especially young men these days, they don't have that sense of conquering, that sense of building something, that sense of going out to the world and say, okay, I want this kind of life for myself or for my family. And I mean, there's not a lot of that going on these days.
No, not at all. Not at all. And what you said is the unfortunate reality, because there's two factors that are important to point out here. Number one is, for thousands of years, right, men had to go and earn their rite of passage amongst other men.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we are tribal creatures. We hunt in packs. We build in packs. We bond in overdoing things, right? Overdoing hard things. Men bond with each other by doing hands-on work. Unlike women, we can't just sit down and talk about our feelings. Most of the time, we got to do something with our hands, and then that's where we bond. Considering the fact that nowadays in society, you have a full-on generation now where you have fathers completely gone from the picture. The nucleus of the family is broken. You have no fathers. And I tell you this from a personal experience, because I worked as a police officer. I worked in the ghettos and the hoods, right? That's where I started my career. And I saw with my own eyes the aftermath of taking a male role model out of the picture. And what's shocking to me is that whoever planned this to happen, right? And I say planned this because from two different perspectives. Number one, I got my graduate degree. I have a master's degree in criminology, law, and society. So I wrote my thesis on about the long-term effects of gang injunctions. But I worked in the hood. I worked in gang-infested areas. And then I read a lot of literature about that. And I realized, well, this kind of doesn't make sense. It almost seems like starting in the 60s and the 70s, this whole creation of ghettos was kind of done on purpose. I'm by far not a conspiracy theorist. I'm looking at facts.
Mm-hmm.
And now I think it worked so well being implemented in these low underserved communities that they realized, oh, we can do this anywhere. We can do this in an entire nation. All we have to do is just take out a man, and you have a whole weak, lousy generation of these men and women too, who just seek pleasure. And they're easy to manipulate. I mean, where have you ever heard people walk around and say, no, trust the government, rely on the government, depend on the government? Never. That never existed. And now you have this whole generation just completely relying on the government. Nobody wants to do the work. Nobody wants to go out there, create businesses, create things with their own hands. They just want to depend. So you take that, you cycle through the whole entire generation, and you have the following generation who's completely weak. There's a great book right here. It's called Hard Times Create Strong Men by Stephen Arnio. Fantastic book. I think this book needs to be mandatory for all men and women starting in high school. And the concept is simple. It's cyclical. Hard times create strong men create good times. Good times create weak men, and weak men create hard times again. And I'm sure you can figure out where in this cycle we're falling into right now. And it's scary. It's scary, my man, because to me, I was like, I can be a cop. I still make a difference out there, at least maybe not thousands of people, but maybe at least hopefully one person a day. I don't need to do this. I don't need to sit there and create a podcast and spend money and pay editors and rent a studio and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But I realized this: if people like yourself and me do not help the current society, current generation of men, then by the time our children, I don't know if you have kids or not, by the time like my children come into this world and they grow up, they will most likely have to go to war. Because it will be just the world will collapse. So it's up to us, people like you and me, to stand up, to reach out, to help the other men around us, to bring them up and show them the rite of passage, and show them that life is not just pleasure and sitting there and playing video games and binge watching and watching porn. No, there's more to it. You are worth more. You have purpose in life. You as a man have a duty and responsibility to become the best version of yourself, to provide, to protect, and help others around you. That is your duty. But we've shifted so far away from that now it's all about pleasure, 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 pleasure. No, that's downfall. That's a downfall of society. I mean, you mentioned the greatest generals, right? I love war history. Like the top 5 greatest generals out there: Hannibal, Alexander, Tamerlane, Napoleon, and Genghis Khan, right? Dude, consider the purpose they had in life. I mean, to conquer the world, brother. Conquer the world.
Yep.
Those guys, that's what they wanted to do. What do we have now? What's the average man purpose in life? Nothing. Just go home 9 to 5, come back, turn on the TV and watch football on Sunday all day or Monday. I don't know. I'm not a big fan of football. Like, that's how far we've gone. That's how weak we've become, man. So I absolutely agree with you. Something needs to be done, and we need to stop seeking pleasure so much.
Well, I wouldn't say stop seeking pleasure, but I don't think that needs to be the motivator. It's not like, I'm doing this because it makes me feel good, or I like it, or, I'm eating this because it tastes good. I mean, I think we can all agree that just because it makes you feel good in the moment, that does not necessarily mean it's good for you. But I do think that we need to think long-term about these things that we're doing, because you mentioned something that I really want to get into. You said in your career of law enforcement, you noticed that a lot of these, I guess, high crime areas, there were fatherless homes. And I'm curious, what do you think it is? And I know we're kind of going off from the pleasure thing. I'm just to close the loop on that. I'm just saying we need to have, as men, we need to have a higher purpose, and we need to know that we're trying, like the thing that we're trying to build, building that thing is what's going to give you more pleasure than the thing itself. I just want to make that okay. So that's
definitely
to close that loop. So, but to open this other thing. So, okay. So you said the high crime neighborhoods, there's no fathers there. Or a lot of them are fatherless, or in and out, or not, or absent, or not what it should be. I mean, what do you think, like in these, and maybe you don't know, because I guess if the fathers aren't there, you probably didn't see them, or you didn't see their interactions. But what do you think it is in those men that causes them to do this like a cycle of this fatherless home? I mean, what just from speaking to you and speaking in the terms of masculinity, and I think you said you have children, so in this terms of fatherhood, and just your experience in the law enforcement, I mean, that's a lot of things there that is kind of, I feel like you would have a valid opinion, or maybe even facts that could answer this question. So what do you think it is with these men in these neighborhoods that are not there, that just sort of abandon their family, or they're not the men they should be? I mean, what is it that motivates them? Is it is it the immediate pleasure, that we're talking about, going from woman to woman? I mean, what is it? Is it drugs? Is it, I mean, I don't know. I'm just kind of speculating, because I'm way outside of my field here.
Yeah, that's a great question, man. The answer is simple. Us humans, right? There are basic fundamental things that we seek in life, right? We seek love, we seek acceptance, and a sense of belonging, right? We want to be loved by other people around us, our parents, our friends, our loved ones, or people that we do love. We want to feel accepted. Okay, we want to feel like we can blend in with other people, and we want to feel like we belong somewhere. Okay, that's maybe even the last two, maybe even the same thing, but we seek that as human beings. Now, take, for example, a young man, a young teenage boy, right? No, 9, 10, 11 years old. No father in the house. maybe a sibling or two, but he's got cousins. He's got other friends out there who may be a few years older. Most of them, if not all of them, are in a gang lifestyle, in a crime lifestyle, because in the dangerous areas like that, you have to stick with each other in order to protect yourselves. So, who do you think he's gonna bond with more? Is he gonna bond with his mom or grandma? Is he gonna bond with his sister or his brother? Or is he gonna bond with his friends who are maybe a little older, who love him, at least they tell him they love him, who accept him for who he is because they also don't have fathers and they come from broken households. And they entice him with different lifestyles of, live fast, get money, get women, etc., etc., etc. So he has those three. He feels loved, he feels accepted, he feels like belongs there. But there's a price to pay, and the price to pay is usually a crime. You got to put in the work. You got to do the work. You got to commit crime. You got to earn respect. If you don't earn respect in the hood, okay, or amongst your gang, your peers, you're not going to survive. To get into the gang, you have to be jumped in. You have to prove yourself. You have to prove yourself as a soldier. You have to do dirty work. And it's a slippery slope after that. Once you're in, slippery slope. The concept is the same, right? You go into a military, it's sort of like, okay, you prove yourself, you do the work, you earn your ranks, right? Same thing in police work. You do your training, you do your probation, and then you work, you grind, you perform as a police officer in order to be promoted. So it's the same whether it's corporate world or the streets. The hierarchy is the same. And these young men, they just want to be loved, they want to feel accepted, and they want to belong somewhere. Unfortunately, all they see around them, some areas, I don't know if you know or not, literally these guys grow up within a few block radius because that's their turf. East of them might be a different gang, west of them might be a different gang, north and south, but that's the entire turf. That's all they know. They don't know the world outside of them. So that's all they know. That's since day one. And it's unfortunate because I've had many situations, many encounters where I've spoken to those guys, those young men. And sometimes I'm like, why do you not understand what I'm trying to tell you? Like, why do you keep doing this? Why is this the third, fourth, fifth time I'm arresting you? You've been shot twice already. Like, I know this guy, he got jumped into the gang at an older age. He was like late 20s, which is pretty old for a gangster to get jumped in, right? Usually you do like when you're barely a teenager. And he just got shot one time, he survived. He got shot second time, he survived. I even gave him a nickname, Roach, because he just wouldn't die. And he didn't really like it, but I'm like, it's a compliment, dude, because you just keep getting shot, but you're not dying. And he keeps getting arrested. I'm like, why do you not understand the concept? You've been shot twice. Every time I arrest you, I have a conversation with you, but you still go out there and you do the same shit over and over again. And he told me, like, dude, that's all I know. These are my homies. This is my family. I got to put in the work. I ain't no bitch. I'm going to do the work. And I have to catch up because I joined in my late 20s instead of my teenage years. And it dawned on me, man, this guy doesn't know any better. He does not know any better. That's all he's seen his entire life. So to change the person for the better or show them different or make an impact on their life, they have to be able to see that there are things that are different. What they know is not everything out there. There's a life outside of what they have. And that's the hardest part. That's the hardest part. You cannot change somebody who's not willing to change. That is the unfortunate truth.
Yeah. You can't change somebody who doesn't want to change, but you also can't change somebody who doesn't see a problem, you know? But I mean, and I don't know, like I said, I'm way outside of my wheelhouse here. I have no idea about any of this, but I'm just curious, just not to play devil's advocate, but I'm curious because you mentioned something about, these guys, this is kind of survival mode for them, like to survive or to, you know, exist safely, I guess. Is it almost that they have to kind of take this path? I mean, is this when you talk about these dangerous areas, because if you're alone and you're not really involved with one group or the other, you're just kind of a lone wolf out there. So it's almost like, and this is a conversation that's probably way outside the depths of this podcast, but it's almost like the nature of the the life inside these places is like, in order to survive, based on my limited understanding of it, you have to be in one of these unfortunately unhealthy groups, is what it sounds
Oh yeah,
like.
yeah. That is
So
definitely that is
I guess
definitely
the question
the
there
reason.
would be like, how do we address that mindset in these areas? How do we on a collective scale with everybody involved say, listen, it doesn't have to be this way. I guess I don't know. I guess how you would start with that would be to narrow down the crime and stop the crime in a lot of these areas. But I mean, you probably know more than I do. That's almost impossible.
Yeah, I mean, I tell you, in my opinion, I think there's only one solution to this problem. We need to bring fathers back.
Yep.
We have to, man. I have had this social project of mine for years now, right? I was trying to figure out two things in the last 8 years, right? Number one, the homelessness issue, right? Here in California, Southern California, we have a horrible homelessness problem. Horrible. I mean, they come from every state because not for two reasons. Okay, and I know these two reasons for a fact because I ask hundreds of them why they come to California. Number one, it's weather. We have a great weather here. You're not gonna freeze to death in December. You won't. Number two, weed is legal. So those are the two reasons. And then now, obviously, you have Social Security, free healthcare, Obama phone, this and that, and blah, blah, blah. But those are the two reasons initially they will start coming in here. So we have a horrible homeless population. So I was trying to figure out how do we solve that problem. Unfortunately, in the last 8 years, I'm sad to tell you that I don't see a solution for that problem. It is a cancer that we have lost, and it's spreading fast. And I don't know, I don't have a solution for it. And I've spoken to some very, very intelligent men, way more intelligent men and women than me, politicians, career police officers, social workers. Nobody has a solution. Okay. Number one. Number two, I was trying to figure out, which goes into your question, how do we stop this downfall of society? How do we get these young men outside of gang life? How do we impact in better these ghettos, these communities in better way? And the only solution that I can find, because everything stems to this one thing, it's fathers. Bring back the fathers. Okay. Because even if you look at not all men are perfect, right? Like my dad was far from perfect. He was a felon in and out of prison, alcoholic, horrible, horrible temper, physically abusive. I mean, you name it, bro. Like my dad was pretty bad a lot of times. But even with that, dude, I learned that if I mess up, I'm gonna get an ass whooping. And my dad used to whoop my ass. Like I literally this year, I realized that my dad didn't just discipline me; he physically abused me. But I say this to say that not that my dad was, horrible, and I still love my dad. I mean, may he rest in peace. He passed away last year. I made my peace with him. He taught me a lot of great things. He taught me a lot of how to be a hard worker. I still learn, man. Like if I mess up, I'm gonna get an ass whooping. I knew the consequences of my actions. Yeah, he wasn't perfect, but I knew if I mess up, man, I'm gonna get an ass whooping all my life. And I had multiple times. A lot of these men, they don't have that. They're raised by a woman, usually a woman who has to work 2-3 jobs and provide for him, this young boy, and his siblings. She doesn't have time to spend with him. She's out there working, so these kids are left alone. And the mother can only bring so much consequences to a young boy. Like a woman's role is to take a baby and raise it to become a boy, right? Take a baby and make him raise him to become a boy. After that, a man's duty and a job is to take a boy and raise him to a man. And I'm telling you, this is a person who comes from a single mother household. I was raised by my mother, my aunt, my female cousin. Like I was raised by women. So I'm sitting here telling you that it's not a woman's job to turn a boy into a man. It's a man's job to turn a boy into a man.
Yep.
I had to learn how to become a man on my own. At some point, I realized, okay, my mom is not going to teach me how to be a man. I got the foundation. Now it's on me. It's on me to figure out how to be a man. Luckily, I had a mindset good enough to realize that I had started looking into other men around me, my friends' fathers, my other older role models. To this day, I have mentors who are in the 40s and 50s who teach me how to be a better man, how to be a businessman, etc., etc. But you see, the key factor here is I had a good role model. I was seeking good role models, but they don't have that in the hood, man. The only role models they have is gangster cousins, thugs, uncles who did jail time, 5, 10, 20 years, hardcore, Bloods and Cribs and this and that. Like, that's how they have their respect. That's all they know. Those are the only role models they have in the hood, man. And a few guys that get out of there, such as some of my coworkers who are now cops, they'll tell you, man, they were the lone wolves. But you know what happened to them? They get jumped.
Yep.
They get jumped on the way to school or from school, and they will get picked on and bullied and get in trouble and have to fight every single time or run until they come to an age where they're able to escape the hood. So that is what I think in my mind is we need to stop destroying the image of men, stop destroying the image of fathers, stop promoting all this feminine bullshit that's out there, stop with all this social media nonsense that everybody needs to be a top G. Like, no, to be a good man, you have to be a top G. Just be a good man. Like, bring back the image of a good, honest, hardworking, average, good man. That's all we really need, man, in my opinion.
Yeah, so I agree. And you said that you're not going to bring out your conspiracy tinfoil hat, but I think I will right here because, it's almost like some of this stuff is by design. And it's almost like, these people who are stuck in these situations, whether it's these neighborhoods or whatever it is, and even situations outside of that. I mean, particular classes of people, low income earners or whatever it is, it's like this mindset is perpetuated on them by making them feel like they're a victim. And listen, like I said, I'm way outside of my wheelhouse here, so I can't comment on this, but I will just say anything that makes you believe for generations after generations that you are a victim of something, or that you can't progress past this point that you're in, or that the where you're at is somebody else's fault or something else's fault. It might be that you might be there because of somebody else. That's 100% true. But it's your responsibility to change that. These guys that you talk about, that you work with, your coworkers who were there in that situation, and now they're in a completely different space. It's not your fault, but it is your responsibility. You mentioned about destroying this or attacking this image of men and of a man. And I think there's a lot of that going on right now these days. I think a lot of men, and we can sit here and we can talk about, well, why aren't young men doing this? Why aren't fathers showing up? Why aren't people doing this? And it's like, okay, well, part of that argument of maybe why they're not is they have a very good reason, a valid reason, that there's a big portion of society that makes them think that they're wrong for doing so. There's a big portion of society, and I don't want to get political here, but there's a big portion of society that makes it seem like men being ambitious or wanting to build a thing, a business, whatever it is, it's almost like that it makes it seem like that's a bad thing. Yeah. You talked about the nuclear family earlier. I mean, there used to be a time where the family, the values, what you taught your family as parents, that came from the parents. But now they go into a school. If they go to a public school, maybe even private school, I don't know, but if they go to a public school, it's almost like they're indoctrinated by something that you have absolutely no say. You don't know what's going on for that 7-8 hours a day they're there. And they come home, and there's this, the parents are like so busy because everybody's working a job and they don't have time to, to teach the values that need to be taught. But this is without a doubt going to piss some people off, but it's like, you have to have this conversation, because it's like all this started when we took the meaning of the family and somehow divided that into two working parents and then children that went to school to get quote unquote educated.
Indoctrinated.
It is indoctrination, man, because it's like look, I don't want to get political here, but I mean, it's almost like you have to, but I don't think it's political. I think it's just common sense.
No,
you have to, like, there are children going to school these days, and they're taught that what I feel like is basic biology as far as sex and genders go. There's this whole movement of it's like these kids are going home, and they're going home. They're going leaving school different from what they went to school as. And I don't want to put you in I know you talk to a lot of people. I don't want to put you in a place to, you don't have to comment on this if you don't want to, but I'm saying that the fact that we can send children to school and they come home and they say, oh, well, tell their mom and dad, oh, well, no, what you told me about this is not right because my teacher said this and she says that she's right and she can say this and you can't say this about me because if you say this about me, then you're not affirming who I am and you don't love me. That is a problem. I think everybody can agree that's a problem. And look, I don't care. Date whoever you want to date. Sleep with, if you're a consenting adult, sleep with whoever you want to sleep with. Whatever you want to identify as, I don't care about that. My problem is when we bring it into the school system, and now we have a movement of confused children that are caught up in this.
Mm-hmm.
Like we don't let children get tattoos. We don't let children smoke cigarettes or drink alcohol. Why are we letting them
choose their
5
gender
or 6? Exactly. I mean,
Yeah.
and this is I think the reason I'm bringing this up is because I think it ties into this whole thing about culture, the culture that we live in, a part of this culture attacking men and this and the whole sense of masculinity. I mean, I think there is an attack on that. Why?
Oh,
I don't know. It seems like it's by design, but why would it be by design? Why? I mean, the only thing I can think of when I hear that, okay, maybe it's by design. Let's play with that idea for a minute. The only reason it would be that way is so that you do not have a generation or a group of men who could stand up to a government that needs to be stood up to. I mean, that's the only logical solution, man. Like, why else would you want it to be that the military age males of the society cannot fight back because there's shit in the water that has like half testosterone in the last 50 years. And then we got all this stuff, like these celebrities come out about this, you should do this, you should do that. Like, fuck what your parents say, don't listen to what they say. I mean, there's all this stuff that's going on, man. Like what else would be the purpose of this?
No, that's the only reason. I'm going to be a devil's advocate here for a second, okay? Let's pretend everything you said right now is a conspiracy theory and Cody Jones is crazy. Cody Jones is like Alex Jones.
Right. Okay? Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Let's pretend for a second. Check this out, man. I'm Russian, right? I come from Russian descent, okay? Communism, blah, blah, blah. Let's go back before even World War II, okay?
Yep.
There's one thing that Stalin, Mao, what's his name? All those communist countries did, right? What did they do? They went after children and they first confused the children. They separated children from their families and then they used children as snitches. I mean, imagine the network of snitches you can have nationwide when you can flip the children against their parents. Stalin did that. Hitler did that. Mao did that. Okay? And it's happening here. Because the way you do it is you confuse the children, you brainwash them enough into believing that their parents are not right. And by nature, they will listen because why? Because parents, especially fathers, are disciplinarians. Fathers are disciplinarians. We discipline our children, right? Parents in general, but especially fathers. So they don't like what's going on at home already, but they go to school and then these teachers, right, tell them, yeah, don't listen to them. You're right. You're 9. You can pick your own gender. You can do whatever you want to do. You can travel out of state. You can travel to California, ask for asylum and change your gender, and you don't have to let your parents know. So they confuse them. And then once they confuse them enough to separate them from their families, then they start indoctrinating them. And they start using them, okay? It's a proven formula. I mean, if you read George Orwell's 1984, it's like, it's basic. It's a book. It's a fictional book, but dude, it shows everything that happened in Soviet Russia, in Nazi Germany, in communist China, and it's still happening. Like, come on, dude. Like, if you don't see the resemblance here, when different powerful governments in countries use that for decades to come to power, and you don't see it happening here, it's not even a conspiracy theory, man. I mean, history repeats itself. How did Rome fall? Rome fall. We are right now as a country. We have the 3 things that made Rome fall. Rome fell because number 1, open borders. Okay. Number 2, complete dependence on the government for welfare. Okay. And number 3, people Rome stopped conquering, and they became lazy and liberal and just obsessed with pleasure. All they were doing is they were the ones who were, you know, cross sexually integrating with themselves, with men, with boys, with children, and even animals. And next thing you know, Rome is gone. Something that was built for centuries and became the most powerful empire on earth collapsed. And we have the same three factors. Do we have border issue? Yes, we do. Do we have the fatherlessness issue? Yes, we do. Do we have the depend on the government issue? Yes, we do. And then we have everything you mentioned before, like the conspiracy, like why are they indoctrinating children? It's simple, man. If you don't know your history, you're going to repeat it. And we are doing it right now. And one thing you mentioned earlier, I want to touch on. You said, God, you said something really profound, but I forgot what it was. I'm going to circle back to it. But the concept is simple. The concept is simple. You turn over one generation. I mean, I'll give you a story. Quick story, right? When I was a cop, I was patrolling one time and I came across this older gentleman, and we started talking. And I would meet with that gentleman once in a while, every few weeks, in the parking lot where he would walk his dog. And I'll usually like post up in there and kind of chill, have my breakfast or coffee there in the morning. And one night he told me, like, do you know who I am? I'm like, no. He's like, I am a Jewish immigrant from Russia. I was a KGB agent, but I realized how horrible it was, communism was. So I was sent to America as a spy. And as soon as I landed, I was like, hey, guys, I'm a spy. Give me an asylum. I'll tell you everything I know. And obviously, they changed my name, and I was in hiding. But I that's what I did. So then we started talking about this whole indoctrination, this whole communism. And he told me, like, listen, young man, understand that communists, KGB, are the ones who created the system, because they realized that we can't go on with the Cold War for too long because we're going to destroy the planet. So what can we do? We can destroy the United States from within, because they thought the Cold War was going to go on for decades and centuries, right? They're like, well, we can't keep up. We're going to create so much nuclear weapon that it was going to kill the whole planet. Let's destroy America from within. So they implemented this plan to start infiltrating, start brainwashing, using media, and over decades, all you need is just to flip one generation. And there's this guy telling me this, bro. He said, all we had to do is indoctrinate them enough to flip one generation, right? And that's what's really happening. And then Cold War finished, Soviet Union collapsed, but then we have other countries, and then we have communist China who are like, oh, all we got to do is just continue what they started, and we will destroy the United States. Because who's our number one enemy? Our number one enemy is not Russia, bro. Russia doesn't give a shit about the United States. I'm telling you this as a Russian. I'm telling this person who traveled to Russia, like, they don't care about Americans, man. They're like, oh, cool, American, here, take a shot of vodka, drink, whatever. But China, they care, bro. They care. Why do you think we're finding spies in Senate and in Congress, and all these balloons flying around, and all this CCPs paying for these artists, et cetera, for YouTube, come on, man. Like, you gotta be stupid not to see through the BS, bro. Like, they're everywhere. They infiltrated every single system, and they're smart. You gotta give them props. They're smart. They realize, hey, school system, social media, that's all we need, and we can flip the whole generation. You got to give them credit for that.
Well, and that's another thing too, man, because people, I think you're dead. I think you hit the nail on the head right here. We think about war, and we think about, like World War I, World War II, like when war was fought by men. I'm not saying there's not men now, but I'm saying like where men were on the front lines, and even the Iraq war, the most recent wars, men were on the front lines fighting the war. And I know women were in there too. But now it's like, it's easy to think we're not in a war. We're in a war. This is like, we are in a war right now. It's just not, it's not like somebody's on the front lines of a battlefield, although they are in certain places. War. But there is a war going on internally right now. And so you mentioned the Soviet Union, and it's crazy that you mentioned that, because there's a book called The Gulag Archipelago. It's a very long, I think it's like 2,000 pages.
Yes.
So I read Alexander Solzhenitsyn. Yep.
Yeah.
I think he was captured by the Soviet Union, and he wrote he was on the run from them or something. Anyways, he wrote this book. For anybody who is interested in this kind of thing, I would highly recommend that you look this book up. But I read
one quick thing. Your viewers need to understand that Alexander Solzhenitsyn was sent to Gulag because he would talk about stuff me and you talking about right now, brother.
Exactly. And that's what I'm leading up to. So I read the condensed version of this book. I think it's like 700, 300 pages, something like that. It's not the whole 2,000 pages.
It's a tough read, yeah.
But yeah, it is. It is a tough because it's crazy. But you know something else they mentioned there too, that you could be if you were connected to a person, a family member or whatever, or if you yourself benefited from the system, from the political system, you could be in prison. Now, what does that sound like? Because right now, these days, we say there are a certain group of people that should be penalized for something that somebody else did prior to them, generations prior to them. I mean, it's the same conversation, man. It's the same thing. And this is what gets me. And we all know it's what?
I believe you're talking about restitutions, aren't you?
Yes. Yeah. It's the same conversation. And so this is the thing that gets me. We talk about Hitler. We talk about the concentration camps. Obviously, that was a terrible thing, and Hitler was a terrible. I get that. But we don't hear, at least in America, we don't hear a lot about what the Soviet Union, like how they did, how they tried to
kill more people than Hitler did.
But the thing is though, and again, not to put my tinfoil hat on, but I think at this point it's too late. Hitler was like, if you look at the political spectrum, like what we have left and right, okay, I think it's fair to say that Hitler was like very, very far extreme right. Like he was way the hell out there. He was way, like he only wants this type of people to be this superior, and anybody like these people are inferior. They should all die. Okay, that's like way out the scale. But Jordan Peterson talks about this a lot. We don't see, or we don't talk about examples where the left side goes too far. We talk about like equality, and we talk about everybody having a voice and censorship and all this kind of stuff. Like there's obviously extremes on both sides, but there's never been a conversation, at least I haven't seen one out in America, where it's like too far. Like it's easy to talk about Hitler, okay, because that's an obvious thing. But like, what about the other side? Like, what about like no borders? Okay, what about no? There's obviously, look, for anything to exist, an equal and opposite force has to also exist. So if Hitler was like he only wanted like this race of people or this group of people was superior and everybody else was inferior, there has to be an opposite of that. And where does that, is that what we're leading up to now? Like, are we talking about, because you mentioned no borders, you mentioned censorship. Oh, well, you didn't mention, I'm saying censorship. Censorship.
Yeah, I agree.
We're talking about destroying the family. I mean, is that what we're kind of leading up to now? Barely, not even 100 years ago, 100 years later. I mean, it's like,
no,
it's not funny. It's not funny.
I'll finish it for you, man. It's happening. It is everything you said is happening right now. And I do believe that we're talking about more and more. Jordan Peterson talks about it. Trump talked about it. I mean, I don't know if you watched the recent episode of JD Vance with Joe Rogan. JD Vance talked about it. Like the first 30, 40 minutes into it is like, listen, left is going way too far. And he even give examples of the left back in the days and the far left right now, where the original left is like, yo, guys, relax. This is not what we want. Like, this is not what we want. Like, I mean, dude, you have a problem when you have gay people speaking up against LGBTQ, whatever, A through Z, 1 through 69. You know you have a problem. You also know you have a problem when you have a cop, right? And a felon, convicted felon, like I have a friend. I'm not afraid to. I'm not ashamed to say that. My best friend, my business partner, right? Convicted felon, served his time. A third-time multimillionaire now. Okay, rebuild this company and we're doing business now. Changed man. And I'm telling him, dude, you have a problem when you have a cop and a felon both agree about the fact that it's no longer about cop and a felon, good or bad. It's good versus evil now, bro.
Yep.
Like it's good versus evil now. Like put aside all this crap. And I've talked to like other guys I work with. I'm a first responder peer support council. I know I publicly speak to different people. I come across different people, and we agree. Like you have a problem when you have freaking mobsters and cops agreeing about the same thing. Like it's above them. It's not good versus evil. That's how far we're in now. And you got to be dumb not to see it. I mean, they're mocking God in every way possible. And the reason for that is this, bro. A good, strong, masculine man is a God-fearing, godly man.
Yep.
Okay? A man is created in God's image. So everything we talked about before, Okay, take out the fathers, social media disruption of the image of man, blah blah blah, and then also take away the faith, take away God, man. So they're hitting us from all angles, bro, from all angles, and it's a targeted attack on masculinity. Believe it or not, it's not a conspiracy. I see it in my own eyes. I see it with my own eyes, and it's no longer even a conspiracy, man. It's happening, and everybody's talking about it. The only problem is we're getting censored so hard, so hard. I hope to God that me and you don't have to go to, send off to a camp and write a book there like Solzhenitsyn did one day. I hope to God that will never happen.
Yeah. So it's crazy, man. I didn't really think I was going to talk about this today, but I don't mind talking about it. So I was one of those people. Okay, so I'm 31. So I was born in 93.
Mm-hmm.
So the first election I could have voted in would have been 2012. I'm pretty sure that was Obama, Biden, and I couldn't remember the other side. But back at that time, I saw myself as what you would label a liberal or a Democrat or whatever. So I supported the Obama Biden side of that 2012 election. And I don't know. I was 19. I think I was 19. And I'm not saying anybody who is 19 doesn't know anything about the world. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying from 19 to 33, I did a lot. There was a lot of changes in my life. I built a business. I started another business. I lost my mom. I lost my grandmother. I went through a lot of change. I went through several failed relationships, intimate relationships. I went through a lot of changes in that 12-year period.
Which made you a man that you are today. Don't forget that. It made you the man you are today. Go ahead.
Sure.
Sorry, I have to say that.
But I see myself when you talk about these people who were on the left and who are liberal, and I still consider myself liberal. I mean, I have my political views. I think are more what you would call libertarian, but I have a lot of libertarian type views. But it's like I think I'm one of those people that transition from that that party to now what seems like to be make the most sense. Because to me, it's not about left or right. It's not about red or blue. It's not about Republican or Democrat. I think you use good versus evil, and I think that's the best way to explain it. I think the second best way to explain it is freedom versus tyranny. I think that's the best. Yes. That's the second best way to say it. And I'm for the freedom side. I mean, that's why in my mind, in my 19-year-old mind, that's why I thought Obama Biden was the best way to go. And I'm not saying it was or wasn't. I don't know. But I will tell you this, and this is really bringing out the tinfoil hat. I don't think Biden's the same person that it was in 2012. If he is, he's obviously got something going on. There's something there. The man is not, he's not sharp. He's not, I don't think he's healthy mentally. I think something,
he had a brain surgery. We're now fine. I don't know if you heard, or we're now, Trump kind of dropped that. He's like, I don't know if you guys knew or not, but there was a Alzheimer's doctor visiting White House once a week to see Biden.
Well, that makes sense. I mean, it makes sense. But it's like, but again, to me, it's like, I think good and evil is a really good way to describe it. I think the second best way would be freedom versus tyranny. But anyways, so we talk about all these things. We talk about like this being an internal thing, and I know that sounds like a depressing thing to say, but I don't see how it's not something that's planned, because everybody has a problem with a man being a traditionally masculine man. They have all these labels they want to put on it until you need a traditionally masculine man. Until you get a 911 call and you have a violent crime and you need a police officer to come, until you need a firefighter to come bust in your house because it's on fire. That seems to be the only time that they want men to step up and do the traditionally masculine thing. Everything else, any other time, it's just, you're supposed to just sit there, shut up, be in your corner, don't say anything. And it's like, why? I mean, it's confusing to me. So as a 31-year-old man, so I know it's confusing to a 16, 17, 18-year-old man. I know it is. Like it's like you don't know what to do, because if you so I live in a place, I live in South Carolina, and fortunately for me, I can still hold the door open for a woman and it not be disrespectful. But there's some places in the country that you can't even do that. You can't even hold the door open for a woman, because somehow that sends the message that she's not capable of doing it herself. And it's like, these are the things that we're dealing with. It's just like, okay, no, that's not at all what this meant. That's not the message here. But it's like, that's the thing, man. It's like nobody wants a masculine man until you need a masculine man. And then when you need one, you got shots being fired, you got a building burning down, you got somebody, in a car accident and there's blood everywhere. I mean, And I know there's women on those forces too. I understand that, but I'm just saying that seems to be the only time it's appropriate to stand up as a man and do the brave thing. And even and unfortunately, even then, sometimes it's not the right thing to do, as some people say.
I always used to say, as a police officer, you damn if you do and you damn if you don't. If there's any police officer that tells you that police work is black and white and you can do everything right and be right, no, you can do everything right and still be wrong. That happened to me. I had an incident where I was right in everything I've done, but because of the political climate, because of the situation was going on, because of the whole George Floyd stuff going on and happening, the higher ups above me said, no, everyone in that group of cops cannot be correct and clear of everything. Let's find a couple that are at fault for something, for not having their boots shined properly that morning, and that's just a lesson for me to learn. But police officers are scapegoats during every election, dude, or some kind of tool of distraction. That's a fact.
Yep.
That happened many times throughout history. But I'm not upset about that, right? I sign up for a job. I know the job. I know that I can die on the job. I'm not delusional to think that it's all sunshine and rainbows. I have no problem with that. The problem I have is this. I want you to understand this, and I want your listeners to understand this, because a lot of officers also share the same opinion with me. I gave an oath to serve and protect the people and to protect the Constitution of the great country. I, as an immigrant, came to this country. Okay, I was blessed to be here. I believe in Constitution, and everything that I have today as an immigrant is because this country provided for me, and obviously my hard work and people who helped me. So I'd be a fool if I give an oath to protect and serve the people and to protect the Constitution of this great country, and then be a puppet for politicians. I mean, to me, having to call a grown man by a female name and address him as a girl, which happened to me, it's a disgrace. I can't do that. Just like I couldn't vax. Like, I refused to vax when they were mandating us to vax. I lawyered up immediately. Luckily, my department at the time, they for religious reasons, I was exempt. But I was ready to give up my gun and my badge. I was like, there's no way I'm vaxing. And thank God I didn't do it, because now, I don't know about you, but I'm reading all these studies that are coming out, bro. Thank God I didn't do it. Thank God I didn't do it. And now, what am I facing now? Fast forward 4 years. Now I'm facing the challenge of, well, I have to call a grown man and address him as a 10-year-old female. Like, are you kidding me? I'm not gonna do that. I'm not insane. I'm not crazy. I'm not gonna allow, like, it's insanity going on, man. Like, I simply gave an oath to protect and serve, man, and protect this Constitution. Like, give me a break, dude. Like, let me do my job. Like, leave me alone. That's the problem we're facing now as police officers. Like, they're like shifting us sometimes, I feel like, into this little tool of used by politicians and whatever is the flavor of the month now of wokeness. Like, that irritates the shit out of me. Because, man, I can't do that. And I know I've gotten in trouble, and whoever hears this interview probably gonna, get me in trouble. But I don't care. I don't care, man. Like, I have my own morals and standards and values as a man. I'm not gonna fucking back down, dude. Like, this is me. This is me. It doesn't matter. I'm not gonna sell my soul to the devil. Not for money, not for nothing. Because then that's what men do. That's what freaking men do, bro. We did this for centuries. We protected people. We fought in wars. We protected women and children and the elderly. That's our job. That's our duty. And because we become so freaking weak, we're not being used and manipulated. That's another whole side of the story that we haven't even talked about, man. That's another conspiracy theory that you want to call it.
Yeah, but the thing is, though, like, I can't. The people that wear a badge or a uniform, whether that's military, police, EMS, firefighters, those people, I feel like, should be respected and treated with respect, because they are putting themselves on the line for the oath that they took, for that, to protect those people. But I think you're absolutely right. I think it seems like the only time politicians care about something like that is when they can use it to promote their own message, i.e. somebody getting, killed or hurt by a police officer when it was unjust or whatever. And listen, everybody is human. I'm not saying they don't make mistakes. Everybody makes mistakes. Like maybe there are times when something happened that shouldn't have happened. But it's like nobody seems to take into consideration that these people are like you guys, law enforcement and the firefighters, soldiers and that kind of thing, are putting themselves on the line, their life on the line, to just what you said, protect people, protect the public, protect the family that calls you when they have a problem. Like nobody's thinking about that, because it's like there are I don't really want to get, because I don't want to get you in a situation, but there are places in the country right now who are pushing this defund the police thing. It's like what like how does that work? I mean, how honestly, how does that work? And we talked about the whole border thing, and you can say that the people are not coming in, the people are coming in, but here's the deal. This is the fact. There are certain cities where places are being attacked and overtaken. People are, without citizenship or whatever. And it's not just people without citizenship. It's like the worst of the worst.
Yeah. Venezuelan gangs, you name it. I mean, I'm sorry to interrupt, man, but it's bad when you have Hell's Angels taking, handling things themselves. It's bad.
But that's the thing, though. Okay, so we're talking about earlier. We were talking about these neighborhoods with high crime, or okay, whatever. But it's like now, okay, so we're not going to let the men and women in uniform do their job. Okay, so what else do we have? We have the organized crimes groups. Is that what we have? We have the militia. We have the citizens that stand up and say, "Look, we're not going to take this. We're going to use our Second Amendment, and these people who are coming into our states, our cities, our towns, we're going to protect ourselves." I mean, what else do we have if politicians, and I'm saying that on all sides of the spectrum, politicians use it as a pawn in to get their next bill or to motivate their philosophy or whatever it is. I mean, it's almost like, man, this is depressing to say, but it's like at the rate we're moving with all these things that we're talking about right now, it's almost like it's inevitable that we're not going to have to stand up and protect ourselves as citizens, as organized, armed citizens. And I hope it doesn't come to that. But it's like, damn, dude, like you can't even, I feel like, because I've talked to a couple of police officers, I feel like you have to jump through so many hoops, and there has to be so much proper documentation, paperwork. Like if a person, if you pull somebody, I don't know what the procedure is, but if you pull somebody over, there's got to be a certain way that you approach the person to where you can't listen. I'll say right now, if I was a police officer and I was approaching a vehicle that looked suspect, dark windows or whatever, the music coming from it or whatever it was, I would be skeptical to approach that car. Like, you know what I mean? Because the chance is they are already going to be pissed off at me because I stopped them or I'm walking up to them or whatever. It's like, you don't know, man. You don't know what's on the other side of that glass. You don't know what's on the other side of that door when you knock on somebody's house because you got a domestic violence call and you hear a woman that's upset on the phone or whatever it is, like, or a neighbor that's talking about screaming coming next door. You don't know what's on the other side of that door. You know what I mean? Like you don't know. And I don't think that, I try to put myself in these situations. Sometimes you hear these stories about police officers, I don't want to say overreacting, but sometimes like the police officer story is they defended themselves from a person they thought that was armed. The person wasn't armed, whatever. It's like, how would you react? And I mean, not you, because you've had the experience, but like the normal person, how would the normal person react if they're in this situation? You have this same context. This is in this place. It looks like it's a violent area. It looks like there's a person, you don't know what's going on. The person reaches for something. I don't know, man. I don't know. It's like, I'm just, I don't know how I would react in that situation.
Look, man,
like,
everything you said is correct. It's not the job for everyone. It's not. Being a first responder is not for everyone, man. It comes with a lot. It comes a lot internally. It comes a lot externally. There's a reason why we're number one in committing suicides. We're number one in divorces. We're definitely, our longevity after retirement is like 5 years.
Oh,
it comes with a lot, brother. I'm telling you right. There's a reason why I'm a first responder peer support council. Lost enough guys and knew enough guys who took their lives or something happened to them that I was like, something needs to change. Okay. Let me tell you this. If any cop tells you, right, that not any cop, if they did not fully comprehend and understand the side effect of this job, maybe this job wasn't for them. I fully understood the job, and I knew I could die in line of duty. I knew that this job was going to be draining. I knew that I'm not going to be liked, right? I'm not a firefighter. Okay, I'm going to be hated. I knew that I'm going to be in danger. I knew all of that when I joined the force, and I knew all of that before I gave an oath. Here's what I didn't know, and here's the shit that just doesn't sit well with me, man. The whole defunding the police and using police as scapegoats, and then turning us into the tools of political agenda, that I'm not down with. I'm not, man. This is where I draw the line. Because when you become so scared of your own department or getting pinched by your own department, or some lawyers who out there, just law firms who are just waiting for police officers to make a smallest mistake, when you're out there in the spotlight, when people do just purposely bait you and put you on YouTube, like all of that, bro, that's fairly new in the last 5 years or so. I mean, do you understand the amount of pressure that falls on every single police officer? Not only do you have to follow the rules, follow the laws, you have to follow departmental rules and guidelines, you have to be on camera, you have to take the heat from others while operating under danger and under pressure. And sometimes you're on your hour 18, hour 20, hour 24. I mean, sleep deprived, hungry, wet, tired, dealing with bullshit at home. Like, and you make that split-second decision after all of that, that's recorded on a 3-megapixel camera. Mm-hmm. That's going to be judged after 6 months or a year where you're sitting in court by 12 people, and an attorney who's prosecuting you, who spent 6 months watching this video frame by frame. That's what you're working with nowadays as a police officer. Okay, and then you add defund the police on top of that. Now we're scraping the bottom of the barrel when it comes to recruits, bro. The bottom of the barrel. Nobody wants to be a cop anymore. Nobody. Like, the ones who really want to be police officers nowadays, I mean, I salute them, bro. I salute them, because there's really no incentive. And the ones who join it strictly for a paycheck, I don't have much respect for them, man. I don't. Anybody who does any kind of work for paycheck only, without passion, without love for their craft, shouldn't be doing it. That's how mistakes happen. And the craziest thing is that there's no limit to a lawsuit payout for police officers. There's a limit to medical malpractice. I think it's like $250,000. Oh, sorry, we killed your grandma. Here's the max you get, $250,000. But for police officers, dude, you can sue them for millions of dollars. Everybody wants to hit the police department jackpot. That's what we call it. So now you see what we're working with. That's where this defund the police is crazy. Not to mention the drug epidemic that we're having right now, and the mental health epidemic we have right now. We need crazy amount of training. We need all the funding we can get, man, to figure out what we're dealing with. We're dealing with psychos. I mean, me going from working in the hood, it was sort of black and white. The gangsters knew they could run and fight me to get away from me, and I knew that I had to catch him. It was plain and simple. I catch him, we get into a fight, I hook him, I pick him up, I dust him off, that's it. Now I go out there, I deal with crazies, bipolar, schizophrenia, multi-personality disorders. I mean, they were talking to you, and next thing you know, they pull a knife and try to stab you. Doing a calm conversation. Recently happened to my friend. He was taking a report from a person in front of the police station. Next thing, the guy pulls a knife and stabs him. I mean, come on. This is what we're dealing with. So defund the police? No, dude. We need all the training we can get our hands on.
Yeah, I agree. I'm glad you said that too, because I was actually going to say that. There was the one side of that argument, which I think is the side that supports the defund the police thing, says that you should do, a psychological evaluation for police officers. And I think that that's absolutely correct, because that needs to be a resource, because that is a high pressure situation. That is, what is the minimum age to become a police officer? 18? 21?
No, 21. I had a classmate who turned 20. You can turn 21 in the academy. So you're hireable.
So 21 years old, at 21 years old, you can be a police officer and be put in these high pressure situations.
And you don't know shit about life.
I'm telling you that I'm 31 years old and I don't know that I could do this job. And so, yes, I 100% agree that psychological evaluations, mental health assessments should be, yes, take care of these people. These people are seeing things like I'm sure you've seen things in in the field that the average person is just not ready to see. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, yes, 100%. Okay, there's no argument there. Yes, give these people mental health resources. Absolutely. I don't see how that's not an argument, you know?
Yeah. I mean, average person statistically experiences one, maybe two extremely high stress, traumatic, critical incidents in their life.
Mm-hmm.
An average first responder or police officer will experience 8 to 10. Okay. And I'm talking about like 8 to 10 that are significant on our scale. And our scale is way higher than an average person's scale.
Mm-hmm.
Like we see so much fucked up shit, excuse my language, on the line of in line of duty that it becomes like a threshold. Like when I went into business, I realized that my threshold of stress is so high, I don't know where it's at. That in business, I drove myself to a point of putting myself in a hospital. Like I've gotten shingles from stress before, and I learned that shingles come from stress, but I didn't know when to stop. I didn't know when to stop, dude, because not only am I an ambitious person, driven person, with kind of like yourself, we already are right there, right?
Yeah.
On top of that, me being a police officer, I lost my threshold, dude. One of the experiences that I had this year is I realized that I had a traumatic experiences. I was pulling this guy who's dead out of the car with the help of other men and police officers through the window because the door wasn't opening. Start doing CPR on him. Fire department comes, right? We relinquish the gentleman to him. They're working on him. So now I follow protocol. I do what I trained to do, right? I start collecting witnesses, putting up the tape, calling the shots of what needs to be done. And I remember I was talking to this witness, and I'm writing stuff down on my little officer notebook, and my hands are shaking like this, and it's embarrassing. The witness standing in front of me. So I put my hands down, I shake it off. I'm like, I apologize. Let me ask you a question one more time. I bring the notepad and a pen back, and my hands are shaking again. I was like, this is embarrassing. Like I had to tell this guy, like, listen, sir, hang out here for a second. I'm gonna get somebody else to interview you. I gotta do something else, right? Later, I go home. I call one of my friends, and I'm like, listen, this is what happened to me. And he explained to me that my mind, right, is already processed this high stress, dangerous, critical situation, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I processed it, and I'm moving forward. I'm doing what I'm trained to do, but my body is still not. My body is still dealing with that crazy dump of adrenaline, and I'm shaking. And that's the problem. Delayed response. My body is not caught up to where my mind is at, but my mind is already moving on to the next thing. That's what we're trained to do. Dead person, dead body, doesn't matter. You do the job. You do the job. And if you don't know how to work on that, you go home. What do? You kiss the bottle. You kiss the bottle enough, then one day you're gonna kiss your own pistol, and that's usually how it ends, dude. So
I think
that's the problem.
I think by definition that is PTSD. I think by definition that's what, like, when you experience the thing long after the traumatic event has left. I was talking to a person one time and she explained that that's what that is. Man, we've covered a lot of ground. I feel like we talked about a lot here in this hour 12, hour 13. I'm gonna have to get out of here shortly though. I'm gonna let you wrap up here. Are you good? Do you have like about another 15 minutes or so? You got another about 15 minutes or so?
Yeah,
10, 15 minutes.
I'm all yours, man. I'm all yours. Yeah, and
Okay.
we can always do it again too. Not a problem.
Okay. Yeah, for sure. I just wanted to make sure you had enough time to, if you had anything to promote while you were here.
We're good. Thank you.
Yeah, we'll go ahead and do that, and then and then we'll talk, a little bit more. But I just want to make sure you have time for that. So if you have anything, where can people find you? Are you on social media? Got a website? Anything you want to promote?
Oh yeah, my website is being built right now, but it's really easy to find me. I'm across all 4 major platforms:
Okay.
Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and YouTube. Name for Instagram and YouTube is the same: Purpose Over Pleasure Podcast altogether. Unfortunately, because somebody took the Purpose Over Pleasure, made one episode and left it at that. Speaking of, people, right? But altogether, Purpose Over Pleasure podcast. I'm on Instagram and YouTube, also on TikTok. You can look it up, or you can find me at Choose Purpose. On Facebook, I'm available. My same name, Alex Payne. And they can find all my episodes on my channel on YouTube, and all the daily clips and the shorts and all that information that I put out is on Instagram. Instagram is my major platform, Instagram and Facebook. Or they can always shoot me an email right now. It's a growth blueprint at gmail.com. I'm still working on my own personal email, but easy to find me, man. Alex Payne, Purpose Over Pleasure podcast. Yeah.
All right. Yeah. If you can send me that stuff, I'll put it in the videos, the links and everything.
Absolutely. And if anybody's interested in my line of business, which is commercial assets, it's cubeworldusa.com, or you can email me at alex@cubeworldusa.com. But it's mostly like business focused. I deal with businesses and B2B. I liquidate, sell, design, commercial assets and offices.
Okay.
I'll send all that to you.
What's that?
I'll send all of that to you later.
Okay. Yeah. That worked. Okay. So we talked about a lot. We got into the whole political thing. I didn't really plan on that, man, but I think that's important because, I think it's important for the people that you kind of work with, people in your line of work who are maybe still police officers or kind of doing what you're doing now. I think it's important for people who are in these areas that they feel like they can't get out of, or in these situations, whatever those happen to be. I think this kind of message is important. And one of the reasons I think it's important is because a lot of people are afraid to talk about things like this these days. A lot of people are afraid to ruffle the feathers. A lot of people are afraid to speak their mind. And I don't think you should, insult anybody or anything like that. But I think we should live in a society where we can have conversations that people don't necessarily agree with. Although I think today, I don't know that there's any disagreement that can be had. I mean, I feel like we spoke a lot of facts. Like these things are real. These things are, like, you've seen these things, in your line of work. And we talk about, it seems like this separation of the family that seems like a real thing. I don't see how you would argue that. But just to kind of wrap this thing up, you were talking about how, working with men, working with young men, maybe fathers even. So we've talked about all this stuff. We've talked about the attack, what seems like an attack on masculinity. We've talked about the lack of purpose. We've talked about the good versus evil, the fight of good versus evil that seems like it's going on. What do you think would be your closing message to men who just, they just feel like for some reason something's not right in their life, whether they don't have a father figure, whether they have a lack of purpose, they don't know a direction in their life, they're around a certain group of people that makes them feel like being a traditionally masculine man is a bad thing. I mean, I know there's a lot of things wrapped up in that, but what do you think? What would be your message to these men who are in these spots today that we actually need those kind of men?
Oh man, that is a great question, and I could talk about this for hours, but let me make it brief, but also I gotta be careful what I say here now for your listeners, because I care. First, if I were to narrow it down to a few things, first and foremost, I think what these men need to do is they need to stop hiding their authentic feelings from themselves and from everybody else. It is okay not to blend in. It is okay not to be what the society expects you to be. Whatever they call ADD, ADHD, and toxic masculinity, no, that's normal. Like, men are ambitious by nature. We are a little more hyperactive. We want to do things with our hands and we be physical. We want to tumble and wrestle with other boys. There's nothing wrong with that, right? This is for specifically like younger generation of men that are coming up. It's okay to feel that way. That's in your nature. That's in your DNA. We are conquerors. We're defenders. We're not meant to be weak. We're meant to be strong. I heard Jordan Peterson say this one time. He said, a nice guy, right, is not a good guy. Not a good guy at all. A good man, right, is a man who's capable of great violence, but he has that violence under complete control. Just because I can deliver violence and hurt somebody doesn't mean I'm going to do it. I'm capable of it, but I don't walk around acting like my shit don't stink. I've built myself to a level where I know how to do it now, and now I would rather help other men. So it's okay to have that energy, that ambition, that whatever you call it, ADD, ADHD. Just you're a man. It's in your DNA. That's number one for the young generation of men. For the generation of men who are kind of closer to our age, when they feel lost and confused, the number one thing I would tell them is this: do not stop looking for your purpose in life. And by looking for, I don't mean, and I hate to say, I'm trying to find my purpose in life. No, create your purpose in life. You create it by doing things. Go out there and do things. But you need discipline in life. You need focus. You need goals. Okay? Go out and lift weights. Go to the gym and lift weights. Your life will change. Because we need that in our lives. We need to be physical, like I mentioned before. And fitness gives you this, teaches you discipline, teaches you consistency, teaches you that you need to do things when you don't feel like doing them. And that's what life is about. That spills into business, that spills into family, that spills into friendship, that spills into career. I mean, you name it. Fitness spills everywhere in a good, positive way. So don't ever stop looking for your purpose in life. Don't ever stop trying to make yourself better. You have the capability and all the abilities to become the best version of yourself. Your purpose in life, your God-given purpose in life is somewhere inside of you, just hidden, like treasure. Unlock it, man. Unlock it. Fucking dig deep and find it. And you find it through, last thing I want to talk about, healing yourself. Heal yourself. And I hate to sound like this freaking hippie, like from the 70s, fucking heal yourself. No, heal yourself, goddammit. Like what you said earlier. You said it great. You said it's not your fault, but it's your responsibility. Take the pen from other people, rewrite the rest of your story. Take control of your life, man. It doesn't happen overnight. It took me 10 years. My overnight success is 10 years in the making. And you know what it started with, bro? It started with motivational videos on YouTube. Motivational videos on YouTube. That's the greatest thing that happened to me. And then it spilled into coaching and books and mentorship and this and that. Because I'm like, I need this shit. I don't have a role model in my life. Like, I need some masculine energy in me and around me. Boom. YouTube, motivational videos, fitness, workout videos. The rest is history, man. I'm sitting here 10 years later talking to you. I'm coaching other men. So, no, don't try to escape it. What you're trying to escape, and by you, I'm not saying you, Cody, I'm talking directly to your viewers, listeners. What you, my man, are trying to escape is yourself, your true, authentic, purposeful self. And you do it by porn, you do it through, drinking, partying, women, etc., etc., etc. No, and it's only going to drive you to misery more and more and longer until you really become depressed. And regret takes over, and once regret takes over, you're done. That is the worst possible thing that can happen to you. So please, take it from me. Do not drive yourself to the point where regret takes over and becomes too late. Okay, work on yourself. Become the better version of yourself. Become the best version of yourself. And in the process, you'll find your purpose, and then you'll realize that you have to give yourself, your best version of yourself, to the world.
I love that, man. I love that last part. You said, focus on this. This is not how you said it, but I'm gonna kind of rephrase it. Focus on improving yourself, and while doing that, you'll find your purpose, and then you'll improve the lives of the people around you.
Yes. The best investment you can make in your life is investing in yourself. That is by far the best. Like this right here, that I read this, I've either read or listened to these books, man. And then I talk to people like yourself. I surround myself with different people who are better. And this is key. Surround yourself with people who are better, stronger, wiser, smarter than you. If you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room. I always seek rooms where I'm the dumbest person so I can become better. Proximity matters. 100% proximity matters. You are who you surround yourself with. And nowadays, you are also what you consume into your body, what you ingest. And by that, I mean food, obviously, first and foremost, right? What you eat, what you ingest through your ears and through your eyes, social media, news, all that. Whatever you ingest into your body creates you. Your thoughts, okay, create your actions. Your actions create your habits. Your habits create your character. So if your thoughts are shit, your actions become shit, your character becomes shit, and your whole life becomes shit.
Yep. Beautiful, man. So one last question that I usually ask people before we close if you could take all the things that you've learned in your life, whether it's something personal, if it's something you want to share from your career in law enforcement, what you're doing now, your coaching, what do you think would be one of the most valuable lessons you ever learned in life? And you might have mentioned it here, but if you did, that's okay. You can say it again. But just, I know it's hard to say the most important, but maybe what's one of the most important lessons?
One of the most important lessons in life. Oh, yeah, I definitely have a handful. Let me see. All right, I got one for you. I'll give you the most recent one, okay? How much time I got? I got a few minutes. You got 5 minutes?
Yeah. You got time.
All right. I'm going to share something very, very vulnerable with you that you're probably still going to be within the first 100 people who I'm about to share this message with. When I was a teenager, when I was about 14, 15 years old or so, I found out through an unfortunate series of events that I was adopted. Okay? That was the most traumatic experience in my life. And I've seen a lot as a kid growing up. I mean, I've seen shit like my dad trying to hang himself in front of me. I mean, my dad tried to stab my brother, and instead he ended up, and my mother got in between and she got stabbed. Like, I've seen fucked up shit. But that right there, for some reason, was one of the most traumatic experiences in my life. Because for the next 20 years, it haunted me every single day. And I believe that's where I always developed a sense of not belonging to places and groups and different people. For 20 years, I carried that with me every single day. And I cope with it first through violence and alcohol, right? My early 20s in college. And then I shifted that. I'm like, okay, if I go this route, I'm going to end up in jail or dead. So let me just be at least a police officer so I can use my fitness and my physical abilities and my ambition and what I want to do for good. But then by shifting gears there, I became borderline masochistic and sadistic with myself. Cold shower, ice bath, just running, just beating my body every single day, right? 20 years, man, that haunted me until I finally realized, and I'm like, I need to do something about it. And I was so scared to tell my mother, like, my dad passed away. I never told him I knew. He passed away in May of last year. I'm like, dude, I can't live with this no more. Like, I got to tell my mom. And for 20 years, I'm like, I can't tell her. I'll break her heart. She'll be devastated, blah, blah, blah. All these images in my mind that I've been creating, right, that I shouldn't tell her. I'll be embarrassed, this and that. Meanwhile, I was dying on the inside. I was freaking dying on the inside, bro. So finally, through therapy, through self-development, with support of my fiance, and just me also being a coach to others, I realized I can't be fucking sitting here and telling my coaching clients, the men that I coach, that be the best version of yourself and heal yourself when I haven't healed myself. You know, I healed all my trauma besides that last one. So I finally grabbed my balls and I had a conversation with my mom. And it was, bro, I almost didn't do it. I mean, I was scared. I would have rather pulled over a car in the middle of the ghetto at 3 a.m, okay, than do that. I was terrified. But I did it. And boy, do I tell you, man, first of all, she already knew. She already knew that I knew. Believe that? And second of all, man, it was not even as close as bad as I thought it would be. And that happened like a couple of months ago. So now, like, not only did I heal my own biggest demon, right? I made peace with it. I'm free. I'm freaking liberated, man. The lesson here for your listeners is this. We create the bullshit in our head. We create that. Everything that I put myself through, all that suffering for 20 years, all these assumptions that I had, all these things that I thought was going to happen. I'm going to have a heart attack. I'll break her heart, this and that. I created right here. Yep. I did this damage to myself. Okay? Because the reality when I talked to her, bro, it wasn't 10% half as bad as I thought it would be. But now that I'm liberated, I go out there and I speak and I share my story with other men. Okay? With other men and women. It is now my power. Like, I've learned over the years how to take the hate, negativity, and everything and turn it into a power. Now, this little story itself that haunted me for 20 years, that's my superpower now. Imagine how many other men I can connect to. Imagine there's a whole generation of men out there, okay, or young boys who come from promiscuous mothers who cheat on their husbands and get pregnant by other men, and then when these boys grow up, they tell them that's not your dad, and they divorce them. Like, dude, that's why I'm so mad at these women. They're destroying these kids' lives. I've been there. To me, I was devastated when I found out my father and my mother are not my parents. Can you imagine what happens to these little boys and girls who find out that their father is not their father, and then they divorce them, and it's horrible what's happening to them. So like, I want to now go out there and give these young men and these young women, give these kids hope, because it's not as bad. It will get better. It will get better. So the lesson here is this: stop assuming, stop creating these stories in your head. Just do it. Heal yourself. It's not going to be as bad. Whatever demons you have, man, make peace with them. Because the liberation, the freedom, the happiness that's on the other end is worth every single bit.
I appreciate you sharing that, man. That's gosh, that's 20 years. That's a long time. Like
20 years, brother. 20 years. 20 years of escaping, 20 years of beating my body, just oh man, I've done it all, brother. All because I thought that if I tell her, I'll break her heart. Right here.
It's in your own mind. I think that's a really good point, because I think that's something that we feel a lot of times, especially if we're trying, like even something really simple compared to this is simple, but like starting a business or something like that. It's we have all these excuses on why we shouldn't do it and why it's not for us and we can't do it. We don't look like that person who's successful doing it, so we can't do it. And it's like we make up this stuff in our mind, man. It's like, and then like in your situation, you beat yourself up and suffered for 20 years over this thing. And when you finally did it, it was like it was not nearly what you thought, that you created in your own mind. And I'm not saying that you didn't have a reason to believe that, but and you were just trying to look out for your mom, it sounds like. But yeah, man, that's an incredible. I appreciate you sharing that, because I think it's got an incredible lesson attached to it.
Thank you. Yeah,
man, I'm gonna have to get out of here. And I mean, we can keep talking for hours, but
yeah.
I'm gonna have to get out of here. Let me do this. Let me stop the video. I'm gonna wrap up here. If you can just hang out for just a second afterwards.
I got you.
But man, I appreciate it. I appreciate what you're doing out there. I appreciate you trying to get to these men, because I think we as men, if we're going to help the next generation, or even the men our age, the men that are older than us, whatever, I think we can't reach everybody, obviously, but I think there's a certain group of people that we can reach. And, I had a person who I thought was very intelligent one time. We were talking about this absent father situation. And she was in this field of helping these kind of people, and she said that there's community, there's men in the community that can, I'm not saying they're going to step up and be the dad, but there's it's like what we do as men collectively is one of the things that can help these people. And it's not a replacement for fathers, I understand that, but I think that you would be surprised, your story and my story and somebody else's story, how many people can benefit from that. Because, it's easy for us to look at the person and say, well, they look a lot different from me. They're from a different area from me. They don't know anything about my life, until you meet the person that does know about your life. And then, next thing you know, they're helping you out. So I appreciate what you're doing, man. I appreciate you being out there on the front lines. And I appreciate, and thank you for your service, by the way, too, from law enforcement. I appreciate that.
Thank you very much.
But yeah, so just hang out for just a second. I'm gonna stop the video, but I definitely appreciate your time, man.
Of course, my pleasure. My pleasure.
Hey guys, I appreciate everybody tuning in today. If you enjoyed this podcast or enjoyed this episode, you can find more at Pure Wisdom Podcast. This is on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, Rumble, Spotify, Amazon Music, and Apple and Google Podcasts. There you can subscribe, like, and share and interact with all of our content. Again, we appreciate it, and we will see you next time.